everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome to GLOBEBUSTERS. Season 9, Episode 23, Radio Silence. Should be a good show. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. I know it's been a while since I've been on here, so what's up to the familia? So let's go ahead and introduce the panel before we jump into it. Zack Zabala from Good Times for All. How's it going, brother?
Hey, Austin. Much love, man. Always a pleasure. I'm like regenerated after the weekend. Really, these do something to me, to where it's not just, you know, the research or wanting to do tests again, but it's just life in general. Like we're wanting to cook every meal now and not, you know, buy something frozen. We're really just have a lot more energy and we want to do a lot more. It's not like waking up and being like, don't feel like doing this today. We wake up and it's like, okay, we got to do this, and we have time to do this and this and this. So yeah, after these events like this, it's awesome. It's almost like we need them a little bit more often throughout the year instead of just once.
Yeah, and, I hear you, man.
Yeah, but I thought it went great. Yeah, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, me too, man. It's always very rejuvenating. All right, and next up we have none other than Iru Landucci. What's going on, my brother?
Hello, everyone. Everything fine. A little bit off of GLOBEBUSTER the last couple of weeks. We have also a conference here in Spain, a very massive one, because we penetrate the fifth dimension beings. You know, a lot of people of new age, and they don't want to hear about blue bean and things like that, but at the end everything's was great, and people start engaging with flat earth and that kind of stuff. So it's nice to be, not feel at home like in other conference where a lot of people came because there are already flat earthers. but this time was completely the opposite. But it was just very, very nice to play in the other and I don't know how to say in English, but play in the other field, you know.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool, dude. So you were around the people that love the aliens.
Well, we start discussing because in that type of how you say people, I talking about like 500 people walking around because it was a really massive event with a lot of scenarios, different scenarios with different talks, things like that. But it was a main stage where the principal or the most important conference taking place there, and we participate 3 days. We talk about blue bean, one-on-one flat earth, and we have like a debate panel with other speakers or speakers. And the majority of the audience there was people of this type of playa dance. I don't know how to say, the galactic cosmic league of a spiritual new age, waiting for
the
the
Galactic
Messiah
Federation.
coming. Yes, yes. And it was like a punch in the face, talking in the main stage about blue bean and things like that. But it was nice, the reaction and the after comments after the presentation. And it's nice to, like I mentioned before, to be in a new ground and exposing what we call the big lie.
Well, yeah, you'll notice that the people that are willing to go to events like this and actually be there in person, you get a much different response than if they were sitting behind a screen in their own
Yes,
home
yes,
without any repercussion of what they say.
yes,
Yeah,
completely agree, man. Yeah.
so that's awesome, Mira. I'm glad it went well. Yeah, and
You
that
guys,
you. Oh, go ahead.
did you guys hear about some new law that they're passing in like Great Britain or whatever about making the internet safer?
Well, in France, at the 5th of October, the past 5th of October, here in Europe, they start uh, like a new protocol in terms of the censorship via or based on disinformation, misinformation. And they started. I mean, at least here in Europe, for example, in countries like France, you cannot open Rumble, for example. And there is these little things that are already been start changing in the way that we use YouTube and things like that. It's a little more complicated, and a lot.
Good point.
And in my personal experience, a few couple of websites that I used to open normally, now I need to use a VPN, for example.
Yeah, so check this out, man. Let's just go ahead and present this because people in the stream, they're saying that they're buffering over in Europe or whatever, in a different place in Europe. And I mean, I'm not buffering. You can use a VPN, of course, if you guys can hear us, but I don't know much about this, but apparently, we'll just read this real quick because my friend over there in the UK did tell me about this. So, a new chapter in content moderation unpacking the UK online safety bill. So, it was passed on September 19th. And from my understanding, it was actually put into place, or they started actually using it the 27th. I'm not sure, but you see here it says on September 19th, the British Parliament passed its sweeping online safety bill with the stated intent to make the United Kingdom the quote safest place in the world to be online. After it receives royal assent in the coming weeks, it will place substantial burdens on all online platforms that host user-generated content in the UK to remove and prevent illegal content, including posts relating to terrorism, child exploitation, hate crimes, or fraud. So these right here, they can censor anything. Hate crimes. So That
I
may
bet
be completely
Telegram will
unrelated,
still
but
be able to look at pornography, though. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
sorry.
It's
Yeah,
just crazy.
pay
It's
for
just
who?
crazy, dude. If this is like, if this is really as big of a deal as that guy was making out to be to me, it's just it's a new world. So try a VPN if you're in the US and it's buffering. I don't know. It's not buffering for me, but anyway, I just want to throw it out there. I think we need to really start. That's a big reason that we need to start going to places like Rockfin, even Rumble. The second half of the show will be at Rockfin. Um, so I've taken a break. I'll say this real fast. I've taken a break to kind of get centered and had stuff going on and blah blah blah. But we need to all kind of prepare ourselves for something like that spilling over here, I would say. So we may consider doing this show through Telegram, I think we have talked about. And so I encourage people to get Telegram to support people like this channel on Rockfin or the individual content creators here on Rockfin and maybe Rumble. So anyway, just to throw that out there because that's getting kind of crazy. All right. That
Well,
was
yeah, and
just a side note.
to add on to that, it kind of already is happening here, Austin. There are, I mean, of course, back in 2017, they came out and said that they were going to censor Flat Earth, which didn't really bother too many people, but it's that same old adage. If you don't help the people that need help when the government is taking away their rights, there's not going to be anybody there to help you when they come to take away your rights. So I had heard, I'm not sure what the exact topic. I have an idea, and we can talk about that more on Rockfin. I don't even want to mention it here on YouTube because of the censorship on this topic. But people are finding out that they can't talk about these things, even if they do toe all the other party lines and this and that. When you speak out against certain topics, you're going to have a bad time. That's just how it is. And they're screaming, "Oh, freedom of speech this, freedom of speech that." It's like, where were you guys when we were saying freedom of speech and not being censored and all this other stuff? So that's why it takes a whole community to stand up to an oppressive government. It
Yeah,
can't be one group at a time. If you let them do it one group at a time, there's not going to be any groups left by the time they get to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what's that famous saying? It's about the Nazis, of course, because everything's about the Nazis, but it's like, oh, they came for the artists, they came for the engineers, they came for the da 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 da. And I did nothing and that turned around and there was no one left and they came for me.
Mm.
Yeah, it says right here, meanwhile, companies must ensure that priority content such as harassment, health, and jab, misinfo, or violence is age appropriate for children. Okay. So anyway, yeah, second half of the show will be in Rockfin. Makes me want to go there a little earlier, honestly. But I really think it's about that time. Everyone just needs to go support people on Rockfin and Rumble. I'm about to go super hard on IG and TikTok. I'm sure I'll get kicked off. And so if you want to keep up with my content personally, you're probably going to have to go over to Rockfin. But all right, I want to cover World War III. And obviously I can't do that on here, unless I just don't talk about a certain group.
Well, it's a little strange. I think they have different policies in different countries because, for example, in my YouTube channel, I uploaded like 4 chapters talking about Palestine and all this kind of stuff, and completely safe. I didn't receive any complaint about YouTube and nothing like that, and we talk really freely, not with hate speech, of course, because that is not even the my position, but we don't change any words. I think the most difficult thing is based on health, and that it's completely and immediately strikeable. But the rest of the topic, at least in the Spanish, uh, I don't know, servers on YouTube, I didn't have any problem at all.
I
Okay, well,
just
I just got kicked off at Airbnb.
Ah, nice, man.
Yeah.
Well, that is another platform.
Yeah, I got kicked off Airbnb and for what? Because if you go to my YouTube channel, which they alluded to,
Oh, wow.
I don't cover anything that can be not on YouTube, right? So like what is going on? First, they said you're associated with someone that's not allowed to use this platform, and then when I followed up, they
Oh, crazy.
yeah. So that's Airbnb, Venmo, PayPal. You know how it goes. All right. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think that we need to. This is a long time coming, and they've been slowly corroding it away. And then they used the "air is going to kill you" situation to get us kind of desensitized to it. And it is kind of that moment that people need to rally around the truth, and massive migrations to free speech platforms is long overdue. But all right,
Yeah.
cool. So I think we decided to call the show Radio Silence. We're going to cover radio waves and or microwaves, of course, just different frequencies, and how they refute the globe model. I have a little presentation, a PowerPoint that I can run through, and we'll just discuss it on the panel as I go. That sound good to you guys?
Absolutely.
Perfectly.
Cool. And then we'll just open it up after that. It won't be super long, and then we can talk about whatever. If Zack or Iru has anything they want to show, or if we just want to pop over to Rockfin and speak like men, we could do that as well. All right. So let me share the screen over here. You guys see the background is the astronaut brainwashing you with the globe.
Yeah, I love that.
Pretty funny. All right. Here we go. So I titled this Microwave Transmissions. And I think this is one of the most glaringly obvious reputations of the globe model. And shout out to everyone that went to Flattoberfest. It was epic. So let's just keep the vibrations high and bring it down the home stretch, you know. All right. So obviously we have electromagnetic waves, and we talked about how waves aren't things. They're just types of movement. I'm trying to slow down and make sure people really follow me. So hopefully that's what I am able to accomplish here. But anyway, electromagnetic waves, even though, you know, waves aren't things type of motion. I cannot hand you a wave. I can wave my hand. But we have this huge frequency, and we have the visible spectrum right here. Very small, minute portion of the electromagnetic frequency spectrum. So anyway, you have radio waves, and then you pop up here to really anywhere from 300 megahertz up to 300 gigahertz is considered a microwave frequency. These are all the same thing, just different frequencies of the same thing, right? So yeah, Zack, if you want to jump in and correct me at any point in time, I encourage you to do that.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, I was just thinking, that is the known radio wave frequency. That is like you see the visible light, that's the limit of our eyes. Well, the way I look at it is that this spectrum right here is the limit of our measuring devices at this point in time. So don't think that there can't be anything beyond or even much lower than the range we see here. I mean, just like pressure and electric potential, we mark a zero. That's a man-made zero somewhere. So it's all about potentials. And yeah, this is all the radio frequencies that we've measured so far, is how I would put it.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously we could, you know, hit the avenue of like, what even is this, right? Like, what is light? But this is just all light,
Yes.
right? And there's a misconception that visible light is what light is, and like, no, it's why it's called visible light, just a portion of the light. It's all light, and then you get into, well, what is light? Right? Because if microwaves and radio waves are just light, what is light? And if waves aren't things in and of themselves, what is waving? But that is a different show. So, all right, let's see if the way that we utilize these radio waves and microwaves on the Earth actually comport to the idea that we live on a sphere. Sorry about that. All right. So here, one thing to discuss. How do people not know that I have a show on this? Okay. Just so everyone knows, attenuation is when these signals get absorbed into the medium, right? So most truthers at this point probably know what attenuation is. Sorry, sending this text. But You know, when they say, "Well, oh, if the Earth is flat, why doesn't the sun light up the whole entire Earth?" You're like, "Do you not know what light attenuation is?" Right? You can see the light further in air than in water. Right? So the turbulence and density of the medium causes more attenuation, just a fancy word for absorption. Absorbs for intents and purposes. Okay. So what we know is even with sound waves, right? It says here, other things being equal, the higher the frequency, the narrower the beam. The attenuation of beams of sound and tissue at ultrasonic frequencies is directly and almost linearly related to frequency, in that the higher the frequency, the greater the attenuation, and the weaker the return signals. This goes for everything. So the important part here to understand is the higher the frequency, the higher the rate of attenuation, the quicker that it gets absorbed into the medium. And we could get into, oh, well, is it absorbed into the medium? What exactly is that? But again, another show. So here we have ultimately, low frequency radio waves display low signal attenuation, making them suitable for long distance communications, whereas high frequency radio waves tend to display high signal attenuation and is suitable for short distance communications. So I just wanted everyone to know, obviously, radio waves, microwaves, it's just light. It's the non-visible spectrum of light. There's a huge span of frequencies, as Zack said. It's just based on what we can currently even detect with our equipment. And the higher the frequency, the faster it attenuates. Thus, it can't go as far. Because one question that people will ask from the globe, once I lay this out, is, well, why does it ever get stopped? Why doesn't it go forever? If the Earth is flat, you should be able to send signals all the way across the entire world, no matter what. Which is a very ignorant question, because there is something called attenuation, and there's interference in many things, right? So if
Yeah,
you,
real quick, I just want to point something out to people. When you talk about frequencies and high frequencies and low frequencies, well, what does that mean? So a very low frequency actually is a lot longer. It has a much longer distance that it covers to go through one complete cycle. For it to, we've all seen the sine wave where it goes up and down, and then the other wave, you have your electric one and your magnetic one, and they cross at certain points. Well, these crossing points at the very low frequencies, they cross at a much longer distance. And the very high frequencies, which are called microwaves, which is kind of, I think they almost do that to throw you off. People would think micro, well, it's going to be real, a low frequency. Well, no, it's a very, very high frequency, because all those little dots are happening at micro increments. Whereas like 7.83 hertz, which would be the Schumann resonance, that's over 4,300 miles long. And then you get up to the really high frequencies, and they're very small, you can measure it with your fingers. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear, that low frequencies, very long. High frequencies, very short.
Yeah, nice. And it's crazy because honestly, I would say, and I kind of covered this a bit at Flattoberfest, but everything is vibrating. Thus, everything can be classified as frequency as well. See, just like Tesla said, you got energy, frequency, vibration. Everything is doing that. So light's just no exception.
Yeah, we are light, in another way of saying it.
Right. And in fact, I would say matter itself is a condensed light. Right. But to each their own. Maybe that sounds crazy to some people, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I know it sounds crazy, but everything, the more I think about it and the more I try to reconcile it in my head, yeah, I think that we're just, like you said, everything's vibrating and has a frequency. So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Someone says, does inverse square law apply to radio waves? Yes. All right, let's move on. So, for those who don't know, here are some milestones of reception of the transatlantic radio signals. So, in 1901, we had Marconi send out some radio transmissions. Side note, Tesla is actually the primary spark or mind behind this technology, at least as far as we know in modern times. Probably existed back in the day. At this point, there's no telling. But he's like, I don't really care. He can take credit for it. That's what Tesla said. I don't care. He can take credit for it. I don't even think he's doing it right, basically. So
I think Tesla just wanted it out there.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He actually has a specific quote talking about like Marconi getting the credit, and he's like, I don't care. So he's kind of just a legend. So here we have on December 12th, 1901, Marconi and his assistant, George Kemp, heard the faint clicks of Morse code for the letter S transmitted without wires across the Atlantic Ocean. This achievement, the first reception of transatlantic radio signals, led to considerable advances in both science and technology. It demonstrated the radio transmission was not bounded by the horizon, thus promoting Arthur Kennelly and Oliver Heaviside, who was a legend, to suggest shortly thereafter the existence of a layer of ionized air in the upper atmosphere, which was called the, I don't know how to say his name, Kennelly Heaviside layer, now called the ionosphere. So to break this down, and then I want Zach, you to jump in because I know you're informed about this. So basically, if you don't know, Marconi wanted to send a radio transmission across the ocean, and it was like over 2,200 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. And they said, "Oh, you can't do that. It's going to get blocked by the curve of the Earth at less than 200 miles. So that's impossible." And he said, "Okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway." And this is the mainstream story. I mean, you can read this exact story on like history.com, historychannel.com, whatever. So he tried it, was successful first attempt, 2,200 miles, and the curvature of the Earth should have blocked the signal at less than 200 miles. So, okay, we have option A. Oh, maybe my assumption about the curve of the Earth is wrong. Not even an option for them. Or B, we've got to invent something to make this work. Zach, you want to throw your input of the ionosphere?
Yeah, the ionosphere is pretty much another Gaussian surface, if you will. I like to think of it as something physical up there. I don't think it's just ionized gas gathering this magical spot up above our heads. It's never been recreated to do that in a lab, ever. And Maxwell actually changed Ampere's equation. It's Maxwell's fourth equation of the four equations. And it contradicts Maxwell's first equation, which I believe was Coulomb's law. And I've only seen 3 papers where physicists have even questioned this and brought it to the attention of other physicists. But yeah, it does not make sense the way they have it written down that an electric field, the start of an electric field, can just gather in the middle of nothing and then create, become a Gaussian surface to create the equipotential field lines that we have here on Earth.
And to kind of provide a little context on the screen here for what Zach's talking about. Many of you may know, of course, but it's a Richard Feynman lecture, electrical potential gradient of the Atmos, and it increases roughly 100 volts per meter. And what Zach is saying is what they're attributing to being an ionosphere is actually a second Gaussian surface. So to put this like really simply, you have to have a surface below and above to have these equally distributed lines of electrical potential.
Yeah, otherwise it would act just like light and fall off at the inverse square law. Electricity does the same thing if it's spherical. But as soon as you start placing it between 2 Gaussian surfaces, or just if it were one flat Gaussian surface, the electric field would remain constant for a certain amount. It wouldn't fall off at all. It would stay a nice constant. To us, it would be like 20 miles for the size of the Earth. And we don't see that. And then it would start falling off to 1 over r squared. And this has been, this is well understood, 150-year-old, understanding of electricity and how it works with other materials involved. So this isn't new by any means. They know this. And the idea that would be up there would totally destroy the heliocentric model. So they had to just say, oh, there's another Gaussian surface up there that just happens.
And a
158
Gaussian
volts.
surface, in really simple terms, would just be a closed surface that's giving this electrical field finite volume,
Yes.
so that people understand. It's just a closed three-dimensional surface. So when we did the test that Zack has shown many times, and he helped me set up for level with me, we had 2 pizza trays, right? And those were our Gaussian surfaces that allowed us to contain this field with a gradient. And what we did by introducing the Van de Graaff to it was flip it effectively. So you have to have 2 surfaces. So obviously, the one evidence that we are in a contained system that everyone knows about is the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is physical containment, right? But arguably just as strong of an evidence is the necessary antecedent to equipotential lines of an electrical field is 2 Gaussian surfaces, one below and one above. We have this provably and measurably on the Earth. 100 volts per meter mean there's an equal increase in potential for each meter. 100 volts, 100 volts, 100 volts, equipotential. Therefore, there must be a Gaussian surface above us.
Yeah, if it was 1 over r squared, that's why and it just shows you how far our education has fallen. Bryant was an educator at Georgia Tech, something like that. And he asked Austin, can't we agree that our electric field falls off at 1 over r squared? And it's like, no, we cannot. Equipotential is not inverse square. Equipotential is 100, 200, or 100, 100, 100 every single meter. If it did fall off at 1 over r squared, like a point source does, it would be 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200. It would double every time it went up. And we just don't see that. It does not happen. But you can see even an educator, not somebody that was just educated, but an educator, didn't see that little. I mean, that was very simple and basic. I was shocked when he asked you that question. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and of course, side note, this is what gives you this downward electric bias that we have on the Earth, which is roughly said to be measured to be 10 microamps per meter. But there's a downward electrical bias, and it's contained within these Gaussian surfaces. And that's what determines going down to the ground.
And that drives me nuts when people say, well, 10 microamps, that's not enough to do anything. But when you add it up, it turns into 1,800 amps at over 300,000 volts. I think it's like 400,000 volts at 1,800 amps, they say. That is an insane amount of power. Unfathomable. It's so much power that there has to be like 70 to 80 lightning strikes every second on Earth to help equalize it out.
Yeah, I'm actually wanting to make a model, and I think that the Gaussian surface that acts as containment is semi-permeable. I think that there may actually be some truth to plasma layers, semi-permeable, and then there's an energy source or many sources of energy from above us radiating down. But who knows?
Yeah, I'd love to play with some what's that fluid? The
superfluid.
Superfluids.
Yeah, man.
I've been looking into nitrogen and containers, and it gets expensive.
Yeah, it's a little expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get a lab going. I really want, with vacuum chambers and liquid nitrogen and the whole 9 yards. Just a place.
The super helium.
Yeah.
Well, you see, there may be truth in plain sight here for me, where they talk about ionized layer of gas. Well, that's what plasma is. Plasma is ionized gas. I think we do have layers of plasma up higher until you get to the containment. And I think that superfluid would be above that. This is a speculation. I've never been there, but it checks all the boxes, because now you're able to have these stars and everything move around us perpetually with no viscosity, no resistance, right? Viscosity is resistance to flow. So it's just going to go through there. And it's not affected by external magnetic fields, meaning the medium would be sustained. It would sit there. Everything would move around it perpetually. But anyway, I digress. So Zach, basically, they had to come up with some excuse to save the globe once the radio transmission was successful the first time. And, what are the odds? And so basically, in really simple terms, they said, oh, well, there's a layer of ionization above us that reflected the radio wave back down. And so basically, it was just bouncing up and down, right? Making upside down V's, and it just landed at the receiver.
Oh, that's great.
So pretty crazy. I mean, this is 1900. So let's keep going. I know a lot of people know about that.
What kind of power did he use, though? Because I know once you hit a certain frequency, it's supposed to punch right through the ionosphere, and that's how they can talk to the moon and this and that. And yeah,
Oh,
so
it was low. It was low.
it was low. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact megahertz, but it was low. It was, and we're gonna get into what the numbers are here. I want to throw this out too, and I'll say it again before this is over. This presentation is going to explain to you guys why we are setting up a test. If anyone's in the Louisiana area, maybe more of the New Orleans type area, anywhere along that area by the water, if anyone is up in the northeast or central northeastern region of Florida, so the Tampa area or something like that, we're going to set up a skip zone test, right? And we're going to send transmissions directly over to roughly the Louisiana area, which should be in the skip zone on the globe. You shouldn't be able to receive it. We are, of course, going to be able to receive it and refute the globe. So anyone interested in helping with that, whether they have like a ham radio license or they have connections with people that have, access to radio stations or anything like that.
Now, when you say skip zone, just so people are clear, like when you're aiming over the edge of a ball and you have a surface above it that you're bouncing off of, there's going to be a little gap in the middle where that radio wave cannot come back down and touch because of the angle and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. Yeah. Like if you send out a signal straight, but you're on a globe, well, the ground's going down below it, away from it. So it's going to start going towards space. And they say it goes towards space and then it hits the ionosphere, bounces back down. So you have that huge gap from when it's going up towards space, then bouncing back down where the signal can't be there, right? Because it's going up towards space, and it's based on the angle and the frequency and the supposed height it's going to interact with the ionosphere, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just going to test a range of frequencies, and put someone right in the middle of the skip zone, right? And show like, okay,
that's awesome.
Debunked. Yeah. The reason that they got away with it is because on the like in lands, like intercontinental transmissions are pretty rare. But like also the distance gets so great that it falls outside the skip zone. And then when you have like inside, like on land, well, you have all this topographical obstruction and interference and all, and all these different things like topographical obstruction to where it really muddies the waters. What you need is location to location with water in between it at the proper distance to set someone in the skip zone. It just hasn't been done. And it's a pretty definitive test. I've asked all the zealots, the zealous globers, and they got nothing so far. Now they'll come up with something. So anyway, just throwing that out in the ether. If anyone wants to be a part of that test, I'll set up a Telegram group. And we are starting to put it together right now.
Very
cool. Yeah, it's going to be cool, I think. So there you go. Marconi effectively debunked the globe, but then Oliver Heaviside, who was a genius, jumped in and helped save the day by coming up with the ionosphere. And this is an important part to note here. Well, I'll cover it in a second. So then this is where you get the idea of skywave propagation, right? It's said that radio waves topping out with the frequency of about 30 megahertz bounce off the ionosphere in what is called skywave propagation, which is depicted in this little cartoon to the right. VHF signals with frequencies above about 30 megahertz usually penetrate the ionosphere and are not returned to Earth's surface, quote unquote. This creates what is called a skip zone or a dead zone. Okay, now they say that the ionosphere tops out at about 40 megahertz. So Oliver Heaviside, like I said, he was a genius. He didn't make this up. If you have ionization and you shoot a signal at it, if the frequency of the signal that you're sending towards the area of ionization is the same or less than the frequency of that ionized gas, it will reflect it back to you, or it'll reflect it in a different angle. It will reflect it. That's a real thing, right? You can test this in a lab. And that's why Heaviside proposed that idea. It is a real phenomena. But if you send a signal that is higher than the frequency of the ionized gas, it will penetrate right through it. Okay. So yeah, here's the depiction of what they say. And what my idea here is you put someone in the middle over water. You put someone right in the middle of the skip zone. They shouldn't be receiving it. All right. So yeah, it's called skywave propagation. So here is a list of some of the world records for radio or amateur radio signals. Okay. To the left, we have the frequencies 106 megahertz, right? And you come over here to the distance and you get into 2,500 miles. 2,500 miles with the frequency of over 106 megahertz. Okay, well, they say the ionosphere is 40 megahertz. So that means everything above that should penetrate straight through the ionosphere. So why are amateurs doing this?
Return back to Earth.
Say again?
It should never return back to Earth.
Exactly. So how are amateurs able to send 106 megahertz frequency radio waves 2,500 miles on the Earth? This debunks the globe, dude.
They bounced it off swamp gas.
Well, they do come up with stuff. They just come up with stuff like ionospheric clouds, and it's just a theory, never been actually verified or even in any way detected, observed, or measured.
Yeah.
They call them clouds, where there's these concentrated areas with much higher frequencies, I promise, all the way up to 400 megahertz. And it's a theory. If you look into it, they just came up with this idea, and they don't even have actual evidence for it, right? I have to run to the door real fast, but here, let me do this. So, yeah, if you want to help a brother out here with what I was just talking about, I'll be back in literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I have to run to the door.
Yeah, so I think this is a great test. I know we were going to do this in FE Core, and they even had people who went out there and were working on the setup and everything. I forget exactly where they were going to send it across. Do you remember, Iru? Was that England to France, maybe they were trying to do? Or maybe it was Spain? I forget. I'm not exactly sure. I know FE Core was working with microwaves for a little bit, but they never finished the test. Yeah, that FE Core, it was just missing the one thing. It needed an administrator. It needed that, the hard ass that's going to crack the whip and tell everybody this needs to be done by this time and this and this. You can't just have a bunch of nerd scientists, with good intentions. You need the person cracking the whip. Maybe next time we try doing something like that, we'll make sure we get the administration done right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're onto something here, Austin. This, I think, is one of those irrefutable type things. Do you know what kind of frequencies you're planning on working with? Are you going to try to go above the 30 megahertz?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because I want it to be a double whammy.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to go through a spectrum of frequencies, ranging all the way up, and also put the person that receives it in the skip zone. So that's 2 refutations.
Well, good luck, man. I hope it all works well. I wish I was closer.
No, it's all good. I mean, really, we can do the test anywhere that there is land to land with water in between it with enough distance. And I mean, just a real good one is Louisiana. I mean, honestly, East Texas, maybe to Florida. But so, yeah, if anyone's in those 3 areas, hit me up. Or if they think they can coordinate with someone else with roughly 300 mile in that general area, 300 to 400 miles away, that's right in the middle of the skip zone. But we'll work it all out. I think we're going to document it and everything. Maybe make a little documentary. All right. So something else, as we covered, microwaves are radio waves effectively, right? It's just a different frequency. It's all light. So microwaves have a significantly more narrow beam thus a much smaller span of diffraction. So if you look at this depiction here, you'll see that you have the radio waves, they're gray, and they span out. So one of the excuses they try to use for radio waves a lot is they say, "Oh, well, it diffracts." So say it hits that hill, but the rest of it fills in behind the hill. That diffracts, right? But now that doesn't actually address what we just talked about here, though, right? This is for ground wave propagation. They say it diffracts, right? And there's some truth to the fact that radio waves, lower frequency radio waves, can diffract, right? So, but of course, they say it just follows the contour of the globe magically for insane distances and all this stuff. But anyway, the microwave is a different story, though. It's much more narrow. So I think if you have 300 megahertz, the beginning of the microwave spectrum, right, or range, it's the beam divergence or the span is about 1 meter. Not very big, right? You get up to 300 gigahertz, it gets down to 1 millimeter. So super, super concentrated,
crazy.
narrow beam.
Less than a pencil beam.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if I send these microwaves out to a hill, it can't just go past the hill then fill in behind it because it's not wide enough to even get past the hill, right? It's a very narrow, like 1 meter or less, right? So microwaves should be very specifically prohibited consistently based on a physical curve of the earth, period. Because there's no way around it. You can't say that it's diffraction. You can't say it's refraction. So, okay. So anyway, just so everyone kind of knows the difference there. Radio waves, the beam spreads out more. Microwaves, narrower beam, and that's the diffraction of the two. Of course, it's not able to go around bigger obstructions because it's such a narrow beam. Here are some microwaves that are in use consistently. So, do microwaves bounce off the atmosphere? While lower frequency radio waves can follow the contours of the Earth and bounce off layers in the atmosphere, microwaves only travel line of sight, typically limited to 30 to 40 miles on the Earth's surface. Another important property of microwave radiation is that it's absorbed by moisture. Okay, so when they say, under normal ionospheric conditions, 40 megahertz is the highest frequency radio wave that can be reflected from the ionosphere. Now, under normal ionospheric conditions, really? Except for when it doesn't work and then you can just make up whatever. You literally, they'll say, oh no, there are ionospheric clouds up to 400 megahertz. It's like, okay, prove it. Just trust me. So I hope that I'm not scattergunning too much here, but microwaves are line of sight. Okay, it should be limited at a very specific distance based on your height on a globe. The physical geometric horizon should be blocking it at a specific distance away from you. It can't diffract around it. Can't be refraction. It should just be consistently blocked, right? They'll say, well, why is it blocked at all? And again, we covered that earlier, but there's attenuation and absorption. Microwaves are going to attenuate much faster. The higher frequency, smaller beam, they're much more affected by attenuation and absorption, specifically even by moisture in the air. Okay. So microwaves travel by line of sight, unlike lower frequency radio waves. They do not diffract around hills, follow the Earth's surface as ground waves, or reflect from the ionosphere. So terrestrial microwave communication links are limited by the visual horizon to about 40 miles. Now, what's funny is the visual horizon. What? Now, these are like official sources, right? So the microwave is limited by the visual horizon. What does that mean? Right? I mean, isn't that redundant? Isn't that what the horizon is? I thought there was a physical geometric horizon. But basically what they're insinuating here is that the horizon you see is the geometric horizon, which is funny because we know in the trenches they had an abandoned ship like 3-4 years ago. They don't say that anymore, but the reason I put
really weird wording, visual horizon. Wouldn't it just be the horizon or Earth's surface, you would say? The horizon is apparent. It's not an actual physical thing. So
exactly. That's why I think that us putting together tests regarding this is something that we have overlooked, right? Because you can see where the horizon is, watch it change its optical location, because that's all it is. It's just apparent. You can send microwaves throughout it showing, oh, the microwaves aren't stopping based on where it looks like the horizon is. It's stopping based on things like moisture and attenuation, right? We can actually document the conditions, the humidity, try different climates, different locations, show the attenuation rate being directly proportionate to those variables and having nothing to do with the curve of the earth blocking them, right? I threw this one in here because it point blank explains it so that the ballers don't have to take my word for it, right? Microwaves travel by line of sight. Unlike lower frequency radio waves, they do not diffract around hills, follow the Earth's surface as ground waves, or reflect from the ionosphere. So you can't say any of these things, right? And we covered that right there. It can't diffract. Okay. So why microwaves are not reflected by the ionosphere?
Yeah, it's a slam dunk, man.
Yeah. The microwave frequency range lies between 300 megahertz to 300 gigahertz. Beyond 40 megahertz, frequency doesn't get reflected back by the ionosphere. It can pass through the ionosphere. Due to this, microwave frequencies are not suitable for ionospheric propagation. So straight from the horse's mouth, right? These are universities, this is government websites, etc. Okay. So here we have the principle of tropospheric forward scatter system. Okay, because they have to have some excuse here, is to beam high frequency signals against the troposphere, which is 5 to 10 miles above the Earth. So all of a sudden, we don't just have the ionosphere that's reflecting radio waves, and then we send way higher than 40 megahertz, and they still get to their destination. So, there must be an ionosphere with clouds in it that can't be found, but they have to be there. So, like, if we just start over, right? It's like, okay, we send the radio waves out, should be blocked by the curvature of the Earth at 200 miles. You get 2,200 miles successfully first time. After that, ended up doing 10,000 miles. Marconi, starting in 1901. Okay, well, then there must be an ionosphere because he was shooting lower frequencies. So the ionosphere must exist, and it's reflecting it back down. Okay. Then we send signals even higher than the supposed ionosphere at 40 megahertz, and we still receive them 2,500, 3,000 miles away. Oh, well, there must be some portions of the ionosphere, we'll call them clouds, and they have super high frequencies and must be reflecting it back down. Now, you would need to prove that, right? Because that means that it wouldn't be consistent. Are these clouds staying in place? Are they changing? Are the frequencies variable? Like, where are the locations? Can you isolate them, etc.? Now, they've done none of this. I deep dove into it. There is no solid evidence about it. It is a model. It's a mathematical model. That's all it is. So anyway, not to get too sidetracked. Now they've brought up something else, right? Because that doesn't work for the microwaves at all. So they say, oh, okay. The troposphere, like the lowest layer of the Earth's atmosphere, right? 5 to 10 miles above the Earth, pick up part of the reflected signal with highly sensitive receivers and beam it onward by the same means. This communication technique has many advantages. Its efficiency is not marred by atmospheric conditions. It has a computed circuit reliability of 99.9%, and signals can be transmitted in stages of from 50 to 250 miles. Now, I shouldn't be going anywhere near that. We're talking maybe 20, 30, depending on the height of the tower, depending on the height of, like, say, you're on a mountain or something, right? So they say that the troposphere is reflecting the microwaves, scattering them, and then sending them back down to where they need to go. 99.9% reliability. No, you're just sending a microwave line of sight. That's why you have 99.9% reliability.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's insane. So they say tropospheric scattering. So listen here to show you. They say up 5,200 miles, 250 miles. And that does depend on other variables, right? Like your elevation, stuff like that. Okay, so what is troposcatter propagation? Right? So if you look here, you'll see the skip zone idea here as well, right? And it's that area that makes a little triangle in the middle where the curvature is at the bottom, the orange line, right? And you have your radio horizon on both sides, which is where the physical curve of the Earth is supposed to be blocking the microwaves. So they're saying that there's just this portion up in the middle that starts scattering the microwaves and sends them back down with 99.9% reliability, right? It's just a made up claim. It's just made
So
up.
they're claiming that the little area in the center that's shaded in sends a signal straight down from that position.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, of course, when you scatter something, I mean, it goes every which way and it gets way weaker, right? You would be
Way
losing the
weaker.
vast majority of the signal.
Jeez.
But they had to have something. They had to come up with something, and not even from the mindset of like, oh man, we got to make it a globe. It's like they believe it's a globe, so they're just trying to come up with what must be happening, right? Of course,
Well,
we
yeah,
know.
when you limit yourself to a certain, perspective like that, there is nothing else that can work. You can't say you're on a flat surface because that's not even in the program of your brain.
Yeah, I know most people don't know about this. Like they've heard of the ionosphere, right? And the radio waves bounce off the ionosphere. I mean,
Yeah, I've
and then
never
this
heard of anything bouncing off the troposphere.
troposphere. Yeah.
I've heard of the troposphere and everything, but yeah, I've never ever heard of anything bouncing off of it.
Yeah, and I'm just getting out ahead of it, right? Because when I started talking to different ballers about this, they said diffraction, refraction, whatever they could come up with, just making stuff up. I'm like, no, I had to find the answer for them. Now they will all swear this is a real thing, right? But that's not our problem. Doesn't matter. They need to verify this, but we're going to go test it. Okay, we're going to test if the signal drops. It needs to drop. The vast majority of the signal strength needs to drop if it's being scattered every which way. Also, the fluctuation in atmospheric conditions would change the scattering. So you wouldn't have 99.9% reliability. So I think we need to all get together, do radio wave, microwave transmissions all over the plane, and just shut this down once for all. But so there's a depiction for you. Tropospheric scattering, a method of communicating with microwave radio signals over considerable distances, often up to 500 kilometers or 300 miles, and further by allegedly reflecting microwaves off the atmos a few miles above the surface. And there's another depiction for you. Now, they also use repeaters and stuff like that, right? But this is just an insane. Now, this will be on a mountain high up or whatever, and they'll use repeaters. But the idea that we're sending microwaves that far on a globe is just preposterous, bro.
Now, the receiver isn't shooting anything out, right? The receiver just catches what comes to it.
Right.
So this whole idea of the receiver is beaming something out and then interfering with the actual waves, creating a scattering point in the middle of the air, that's just nonsense.
Yeah, as if they're like hitting each other.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It's not like, wow.
It's pretty crazy, man.
That's a super stretch reach right there.
Now, here's what's so interesting, right? Now, just think about this. So you see this depiction, you see the curve here, and so understand that these transmissions are coming straight out from the tower. They're going horizontal. And then they have a very small beam divergence. I mean, this isn't even close to scale. These are huge. This is a huge divergence in relation to the Earth, right? Right. But it's really, really small and horizontal. But of course, if you have the Earth curving down below you, then that horizontal goes up into the sky. Now, flatten that Earth out, and what do you get? You just get a really tight, narrow beam shooting straight out across to the receiver.
Yeah, and hitting the receiver. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly,
it won't work.
what
It won't work if there's a lot of moisture or if it's raining. It may not work.
Well, yeah, just like the visible light we see, the more moisture in it, the more diffraction there is.
Yeah.
That's just how it happens.
Yeah. So,
wow.
It's attenuation, man. They're like, oh, well, why wouldn't you be able to send it across the whole world? It's like attenuation, bro. Microwaves are higher frequencies, higher rate of attenuation. So just so you guys know, you have the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere. So it's just this very low portion of the atmos. They're saying that these microwaves are just bouncing off just a few miles above the Earth's surface and coming back down with like 100% reliability effectively. It's just absurd. So,
do the people that use these have no idea how they work? the receiver is not shooting anything out. That just blows my mind.
Well, look,
That's
this is what's check this, dude. This is where it gets pretty funny to me. So you have the enhanced tropospheric refraction because they say you have an inversion layer. So you have a temperature inversion layer where you have the cool, moist air, then the warm, dry air above it. And it's like, oh, it reflects back down because there's an inversion layer. Okay, so that inversion layer must be very consistent, right? It can't fluctuate. If we're having 99.9% reliability, then this magical layer,
yeah, it's
right,
pretty sound wherever it's. Yeah, wow.
and it would have to consistently be there at a specific height. You can't say 6 to 10 miles. You can't say something like that. That's not how it works, because how are you going to know the exact angle required for it to be sent back down and received? Right? It would have to be a very specific height, and the inversion layer would have to always be there and not fluctuating in order to have a 99.9% reliable reception. So I hope that makes sense. That's just a straightforward refutation of the idea on its face. Then you have tropospheric ducting. Now, this is just like whenever they send in, they say that a well can send out its sonar 10,000 miles. And they're like, oh, well, what happens is it's as if it were horizontal, but really there's just a ducting layer, and the signal, the sonar wave, gets trapped inside of it and just bounces up and down inside this little magical ducting layer, and it brings it around the globe perfectly as if it were horizontal. So same thing here, right? You have surface tropospheric ducting, where that ducting layer would be between that inversion layer and the ground, and just bouncing up and down, bouncing up and down. Now, this is something else that we can test as well, because if I send out a microwave and they're saying that this bottom blue region is what's happening right here, that we have all kinds of little skip zones, right? So I should be able to put people all throughout this. I should be able to know the exact angle and this, whatever the supposed height is. I mean, they made this unfalsifiable. They don't even give you, it's like, okay, 5 miles. We could do the math. Okay, I'm at this height. I'm sending out this frequency microwave. And so therefore at 5 miles, it's going to hit at this angle, and then it's going to come back down at this angle, thus be received at this distance, thus give us this skip zone, right? Very specific, testable, falsifiable claim. They don't do that. I mean, I looked a long time, and it's always just a range. It's like, oh, 5 to 10 miles, 6 to 10 miles. It's like, what? So anyway, my point is, obviously, if you're on a plane and you send this microwave out straight, then people are going to be able to receive it all along the surface. So we have a pretty glaring distinction here, which is why we should test it, right? So anyway, that's the two different types here. They have the enhanced tropospheric refraction, and then you have the tropospheric ducting. And they had to say that there was tropospheric ducting because people receive these microwaves all along the path, all along the line of sight path. So they have to say it's ducting, just like the sonar waves with the well. You had to say, now they can't tell you how that happens, why it happens, where it's at. It's just consistently wherever the well happens to shoot his wave, right? Shoot out his sonar. But anyway, so then here's another depiction for you where you have the troposcatter horizon, and then you have the so you have the sender and the receiver here. You have the tropospheric boundary. And see, it's giving you a 13-kilometer average as the boundary. It gives them this huge window. But anyway, the idea is that they send the signal out from a lower elevation, and then it's what it looks like in the depiction, right? A lower elevation, and it goes over these really tall mountains because it's scattering. But that's not what actually happens. So I read through the military documents, for example. They put these microwave transmitters on high elevations. Okay, so like on a mountain, and then they shoot them out line of sight, and it goes far beyond the alleged geometric horizon, and they say, okay, well, it must have reflected at roughly this height. So whatever it is, right, whatever the distance is, they say, oh, well, it must have reflected at that height. Basically, it's that simple. So here is where I kind of, laid it out a little bit, where the beam allegedly reflects here, that's circled, and that gives you this huge skip zone. So this goes for radio waves and microwaves. Right? So even with the tropospheric scattering, you have a certain scattering angle. So this is a very testable and falsifiable situation. Now, I know this is a bit much, and I didn't even realize it was going to be quite this densely packed. But hopefully, this intrigues people to want to all get together and let's create some tests, because this would be direct physical refutation of the globe model. You really couldn't get out of it. All right, so we're almost done. So consistent horizontal line of sight microwave transmissions over great distances falsify the globe model, right? Because that's what we have up to hundreds of miles consistently. So we covered the whole reason why, right? If you come back all the way over here, the diffraction limit is different. So in conclusion, with the whole presentation here, they say there's skywave propagation and ground wave propagation. They say when you send out radio waves with ground wave, it bends to the contour of the Earth's surface and just goes around it magically because of diffraction. You have skywave propagation, where they say it bounces off the ionosphere, roughly up to 30 megahertz, no higher than 40 megahertz, because the ionosphere is supposedly 40 megahertz. We have the world records over 100 megahertz, sending up to 2,500 miles, which should have penetrated straight through the ionosphere, yet we're still doing it. Amateur radio signals on the Earth are going over 2,500 miles, directly refuting the claim that there is a physical geometric horizon of a globe blocking these signals, because it's well over the frequency that can reflect off the ionosphere. It has to be equal or less than, and this is almost 3 times as high, the frequency. And then microwaves, of course, can't diffract. They can't follow the Earth's surface. They can't reflect around from the ionosphere, even according to their own model, because the frequency is so high. And yet they said it should never go beyond the visual horizon. We covered all that. The point is that we do, in fact, use them up to hundreds of miles. Sometimes we relay, but they're consistently reliable, 99.9% reliability. And they had to come up with some new story about, oh, well, yeah, there's the ionosphere and the troposphere, and it both reflects the signals down as we need it to, because otherwise it wouldn't work on the globe. So there is a conclusion, like the actual practical use case and efficacy of radio waves and microwave transmissions on the Earth directly and physically refute the globe model. This is not optical. This is not mathematical. This is nothing like that. This is a physical test that is physically refuting the claim of physical obstruction. So yeah, there you go. Thank you. All right. Let me come over here and share. Stop the screen share. So yeah, I know that was a lot, but hopefully you guys found that somewhat edifying. Oh, I didn't realize that you were back in here and you had dropped. Sorry, brother.
No worries. My bad.
No, you're
Wrong
good.
button.
So yeah, that was just kind of what I wanted to cover. And I thought it'd be cool to call it radio silence, because I just get crickets. I get crickets with this argument.
Well, yeah, there is not much that they could say. Like you said, they have to come up with things like ionic clouds and things like that they've never ever measured, or just nonsense. So yeah, you're going to
Exactly.
get a lot of crickets.
Yeah, it's
This is a good angle to come at them from.
yeah, and
'Cause
there's
these are those things in physics that are scalable and we can measure and we know how they actually function and work. And yeah, there's no magical fairy tale refraction they can go throwing out with a scale and say, oh yeah, it works. Look, you just move the scale this way. This isn't like that.
yeah, exactly. This is I think there's so many different variations of what we could do to test with this as well, because they've trapped themselves in certain claims. So anyone that wants to be a part of the test, let me know. You can message me on Telegram at Witsit, and you don't have to be in Louisiana, like East Texas, New Orleans, or Louisiana area, and West Florida, Central Westish. But we're open to anyone in these places. Like if you're in North, South, whatever, Florida, right? Because there are islands, there are all kinds of different places we can do it. Also, just be creative if you want to do a test. But say you're in Cali, well, look for an island that maybe you could send it to. You could be in North Carolina and do it to an island off the East Coast. You could be anywhere in the world, and all you have to do is find another landmass that someone's there to do the test. And the idea is we'll iron it out in our test. We'll figure out the best way, what are the legalities and technicalities and, the things that you may run into. And then once we iron it out, the idea is that everyone across the plane does it. Just,
Now, are there any apps or anything like that that would make it possible to receive these frequency signals on your telephone?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That would be something good because then people wouldn't have to go out and actually, purchase something to receive it or something like that. Maybe there was it would cut down on the cost a lot.
Yeah, you would think that there is, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you can get the police scanners, and I mean, you could listen to police scanners from pretty
Exactly.
much anywhere in the world with
Yep.
your cell phone.
So we could have just multiple people with their phone with an app out, and you just have to worry about the transmission signal itself.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, man. I hope you get some people. I know a guy that down in Louisiana. He can get to the. He's more western Louisiana, but he can get down there to the edge. He goes down by the water. It doesn't take him very long. He lives right by the boundary waters there. Very
Nice.
cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah, and then let me also, what I'm going to do is share for you guys the GLOBEBUSTERS Telegram and copy link. So you guys can also link up in the GLOBEBUSTERS Telegram. What we'll do is we'll create a separate private chat for this this test at some point. But yeah, we finally kind of got everyone in place and people were traveling and I was moving, but now I think that we're ready to kind of start putting it together. So I'll drop in the YouTube chat right now the GLOBEBUSTERS Telegram, t.me/GLOBEBUSTERS. So I encourage you to join that. If you don't have Telegram, you should definitely think about it. Certainly, as they're rolling out all kinds of censorship. Okay,
And
cool.
and also Discord is a nice platform to transmit. I don't know if you tested, but the other day someone invited me at an interview, and they do a live stream in Discord, and it's like StreamYard. It works really, really good.
Yeah, I'm on Discord a lot. Discord
Okay.
is very cool. I mean, they've nuked every time I start a channel, it gets nuked, and I've had my account deleted like 5
Oh
times.
my god, that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Forget
But
about it.
yeah,
Go to
it's
Telegram.
not terrible, but you got to be careful.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I guess we're almost at the halfway mark and we can move over to Rockfin, but you guys have anything you want to say to the YouTube or anything you want to bring up before we switch over?
Much love.
Yeah, I would like to just say about the weekend, Flatoberfest. If you haven't been to one of these, you don't know what you're missing. It's really hard to explain and to put it into words. The freedom you get when you can look at 500 people in a room and know that there's not much you can say, that's going to make them look at you like you're crazy. All of these things that we talk about, all the different topics and items, not just, the shape of the earth, but all the different lies that, they try to pull on us. A lot of these people are awake to that stuff too. It's not just the shape of the earth. And it's this weird sense of like your home. It doesn't matter where it is, but you get this sense that the people here are somehow like family almost. I don't know how else to explain it other than it's like a family reunion that you really want to go to. Stephanie in chat, I got to meet Stephanie. She was there from the Netherlands, just near Amsterdam. She flew out. And it really is. It's different. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's like a family reunion that you really want to go to. And there's nobody there to, I mean, how often do you see a bunch of adults that have access to a bar and not one argument? When you're speaking about such polarizing topics, all the different topics you can speak about are being spoken about at these things. And not even raised voices in an argument. If anything, they're raised voices of laughter and, just it's an amazing time, and it changes you. Everybody that does it for the first time, and there were a lot of people there for their first time. It's a really eye-opening and just heart-opening experience. So I hope you get to go to one of these at one time, because you're going to want to go to the next one, I guarantee. So thanks to everybody that helped. There were a lot of people in the community that came and just really worked their butts off. So thank you all who helped, and Karen B, and all the presenters, Austin, Jeran, Iru. I wish you could have been there, man. Maybe next time. We got to get you back to the States. I miss you so much. But yeah, I had a ball, and no complaints.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. It was cool. Yeah, you nailed it. You summed it up, man. It's just all good vibes. It's like a family. Just everyone showing love and talking about thought-provoking, profound, important issues. And yeah, it's very in this world where speaking truth results in, inevitable ostracism, right? Being ostracized and stuff. It's so rejuvenating to go in person and hang out with fellow truthers. So
And the nice thing is it's like something universal, because at least in my, I don't know, 10 conference in the Spanish community, it's the same feeling, it's the same vibe. So it's really nice to participate in this type of meetings.
yeah, man, very cool. So Iru, when you gonna come kick it in Florida, bro?
Oh, that's that's something that I think quite a lot. I cannot say exactly when, but I hope this year maybe I am in the position to go there.
Oh, very cool, man. We should
Yeah,
we should all get together, fund you a nice little trip, man. You got a place to stay in
yeah,
Florida. If you want.
yeah. I need to at least be aware to take for the take into the account another conference, another meeting, and participate a little bit of that, and that could be a nice excuse to go there.
Yeah, yeah. I need to come to one of your conferences at some point. You're always doing a conference.
Yeah, there was a lady there, Iru, from South America, Colombia. So not quite near as far
Nice.
south as you. But
In the
yeah,
middle,
South America was represented at the conference.
well, that is more middle America, but it's the same thing because we are all speak Spanish, and it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really neat. A lot of international travelers this year. Australia, France, England, Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
Colombia. It was wild.
And then at one point, the room was asked like, "How many of you are at Flattoberfest for the first time?" And like the majority of the room raised their hands.
Yeah, it was like 60%, something like that. Something
Yeah.
crazy.
Very cool, man. It was very cool.
And the coolest part about these is there are people there that I've met in Denver for the very first FEIC I went to back in 2018. And I don't ever see them online ever, anywhere. I think we might be friends on Facebook, but neither of us use Facebook. It's one of those things. But I see this guy at every single event, and it's just like one of those buddies that's been your best friend, and you haven't seen him in years, but you see him, and it's just like you saw each other yesterday. It's one of those are the type of friendships you can make at these things. Yeah, it's really neat. It really is.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. So you guys don't want to miss out on the next one. And I'm sure at some point you guys will get to see some of the presentations, but I don't know how all that works.
Yeah, I heard everybody pretty much slayed it this year. There were no complaints.
That's very cool, man.
A couple people were shocked. Dave Murphy, Amanda Vollmer with urine therapy, talking about that near the end of their talks. Kind of shocked a couple people, but besides that, everybody loved it. like everything. I heard a lot of good about your presentation, Austin, Jeran's presentation, Mark Devlin's, and Greg
Oh.
Reese. Did you get a chance to talk with Greg Reese?
I didn't. I don't think I really personally talked to him. No, or maybe
Really
maybe for
cool
a second.
guy.
I don't remember. He was cool. Every time I was around him, he was very chill, very genuine energy.
Yeah, I got to speak to him. We had breakfast in a group, but then I got to speak to him a little bit after that, just one on one. And he seems like I'm pretty good at reading people. And unless he's like an A-list actor, he seems like a very genuine guy to me. Just someone who cares and wants to get the truth out there and is, he has a reputation, so he can't go just talking about stuff. We talked about that. He's like, I can't talk about all the things I want to talk about because a lot of it can't be verified. And when you're in journalism, verification is very important. So he doesn't mind speculating, off show that he does. But when he's on the show, he tries to stick to topics, things that he can prove and has, verifiable evidence. But yeah, he's all about, the earth not being a ball. 100%. Yeah. Just an interesting guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. All right, I guess we can pop on over to Rockfin and we can talk about whatever. If you guys want to present something, or if you guys just want to kind of talk about what's going on in the world, it's whatever.
Cool.
So I think that we can talk. There's some things I think we could cover about what's going on in the world today, but it'd have to be over there. So rockfin.com/globebusters. Pretty sure that the link is being dropped in the chat. I will also drop it. And yeah, we'll see you over there. You guys have anything else?
Nope. Thank you.
All right, cool. So thank you guys for kicking it here on YouTube. We will read all the tips off on Rockfin, and it's greatly appreciated. And you guys should all just go over there and don't make it weird. So dropping the link now. All right, cool. So we appreciate you guys coming, and we will see you next week. We're going to finish it out where we can speak freely. You guys want to kind of tell YouTube what you got coming up soon, or not?
Yeah, sure. I am taking a break from working on the map for a little bit. They're there. There's still more maps to do with the whole base thing, but I'm just kind of burned out on it at the moment. And no, I'm going to get into experimentation mode here real soon. This always happens after these Flattoberfest. I get real, a lot of great ideas and people sharing, we could try this, we could try that. And yeah, there's just some stuff. I have some new toys I'd like to get. And so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I'll be hanging out over at Iron Realm Media. We're on Free World FM, which should be going live here pretty soon. I know they're on the air right now, but with all the different hosts and everything, I believe it's going to be at the beginning of this month coming up, beginning of November. Yeah, freeworld.fm. We are on 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. We have a great time. It's mostly people from across the pond because I know that's early for most people, but we do get some people. It's a lot of people wake up and come jump in the chat before the show's over. So yeah, if you're up that early at that time, come on. You want to hear me unedited and pretty much raw, like just woke up half hour ago, maybe not even a cup of coffee in me or anything. Yeah, I may not be as articulate, but you're gonna hear what I'm actually thinking. We don't get so censored over there. It's nice.
Nice. Iru, what you got coming up for the YouTube audience?
Well, I'm start translating using AI videos in English. In fact, I translated one of the last talking about the radio wave transmission record from Ben from Taboo Conspiracy, and he he was so amazed because this new softwares keep the tone voice and the same thing as it's like hear yourself speaking in Spanish. And I'm start doing that, trying to bridge between the two languages. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the last 2 weeks was I was outside my studio and making or participating in this conference, so I need to get back to my regular stuff. The last 3 weeks, we talk a lot of politics and geopolitics based on the Middle East conflict. So I need to get back a little bit to my usual stuff in the flat earth topic.
Nice. Very cool, bro. Yeah, AI may pull you through with that. That would be cool. All right.
And
Cool.
there
Yeah.
was oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Austin. I was
No,
just
you're good.
gonna remind you there is a chat here over on the YouTube, super chat.
Oh,
And just don't let you forget that one.
okay. Let's see. Was it a long time ago? No, I see it. Okay. I don't know how to pronounce this. Gowana Spice. Vic Stefanu channel has vid of World War I German communications tower 3 at 150 feet high on Yap Island in Pacific. So location on islands in Pacific were IMP. Impossible. Nice. Very cool. So there is, I'll drop the YouTube link that's in the super chat so you guys can check it out. And thank you for the $10 super chat. I think it's Gowana Spice. I don't know, but thank you for the support. And I dropped that link in the chat, and I'll drop it in the GLOBEBUSTERS Telegram. All right. So very cool. Just debunking the globe left and right. You know how it goes. All right, cool. And so I took a break. You guys probably know that. I stepped away. Stuff going on. And I just kind of needed to, get centered. And it was really good for me to kind of step away and take a break. I know it's going to be very fast paced for me coming up. But I'm coming back tomorrow with a comeback stream, if you will, and then I'll be consistently streaming. I have Debate-a-thon on the 4th, and I'll kind of keep everyone updated on there. And yeah, everyone's links are in the description. You can go to witted.live, get all my links. And cool. All right, we have some big announcements, but I don't want to announce them yet. But anyway, I am officially coming back. So a lot of people were asking me if I'm okay or where I've been. I just had to take a break. I had to get centered, if you will. All right, cool. Thank you guys for kicking it. We're going to go over to Rockfin, rockfin.com/globebusters, and we'll finish the chat over there. Until next week, we will see you later. Much love. And I'm going to press remove.